He looks interested. He shows care in small ways. You feel the connection, but something feels off. This man may be deeply in love with you, yet he is hiding something important, not always another person, not always bad intentions. Sometimes what he hides is fear, emotional wounds, or a heart that isn't ready to be honest. And Islam teaches us that love without clarity is not peace. Today, we'll talk about what he may be hiding and why you must not ignore the signs. Love that is hidden often comes from fear. Love that is hidden often begins not with lack of feeling, but with fear. A man may genuinely care, feel attachment, and even imagine a future, yet still keep his heart partially concealed. Islam teaches us that fear can silence truth when faith and emotional maturity are weak. This fear is not always about another person. Often, it is fear of responsibility, fear of commitment, or fear of being accountable before Allah. Love requires courage. It requires standing openly, clearly, and honestly. When a man hides his love, it is usually because he is unsure whether he can carry what love demands. A woman may sense warmth, affection, and concern, yet feel confusion at the same time. That confusion is a sign that fear is present. Love that is guided by fear hesitates. It sends mixed signals. Islam teaches clarity because clarity protects hearts. When fear replaces clarity, love becomes unstable. Instability does not bring peace. Peace is a sign of what is right. Hidden love often lacks peace because fear is quietly leading the heart instead of faith. Fear often comes from the weight of responsibility that love brings. Love is not just emotion, it is duty, protection, and intention. Islam teaches that relationships must be built on responsibility, not just feeling. A man who hides love may fear whether he can fulfill the role required of him. He may worry about financial readiness, emotional leadership, or long-term commitment. Instead of addressing these fears honestly, he withdraws emotionally while staying connected just enough to avoid loss. This creates imbalance. The woman feels closeness without clarity. Islam teaches that imbalance harms the heart. A man who is afraid of responsibility may delay decisions, avoid serious conversations, or keep the relationship undefined. This is not always manipulation. Sometimes it is immaturity. Immaturity does not mean evil, but it does mean risk. Love without readiness becomes a burden rather than a blessing. A woman must recognize that fear-driven love cannot provide stability, no matter how deep the feelings seem. Another source of hidden love is fear of vulnerability. Loving openly requires emotional exposure. It means admitting need, desire, and intention. Some men were raised to believe vulnerability is weakness. Islam teaches the opposite. Strength includes honesty and emotional courage. When vulnerability is feared, love is expressed indirectly. Care is shown in actions, but words remain guarded. Affection appears, but commitment stays unclear. This inconsistency confuses the woman's heart. Islam does not encourage confusion. Confusion drains peace and creates emotional exhaustion. A woman may try to interpret signs, hoping actions will eventually turn into clarity. But fear delays clarity. Delayed clarity prolongs uncertainty. Uncertainty is not love's companion, it is fear's shadow. Fear can also come from past wounds. A man who has been rejected, betrayed, or humiliated may protect himself by hiding his feelings. Islam teaches healing, not avoidance. When wounds are unhealed, love becomes cautious. Caution alone is not harmful, but silence is. Instead of seeking healing, some men choose emotional distance. They love quietly, but they do not step forward. This leaves the woman carrying emotional weight she did not choose. Islam teaches that one person should not bear the unresolved wounds of another. Love that grows from unhealed pain often creates pain. Without healing, fear remains in control. Fear blocks honesty. Honesty is the foundation of trust. Without trust, love cannot grow safely. Hidden love may also stem from fear of loss of control. Commitment requires surrender. Islam teaches surrender to Allah, not control over people. A man who hides love may fear losing freedom, autonomy, or dominance. Instead of trusting Allah with change, he keeps one foot in and one foot out. This half-presence feels unsettling. The woman senses attachment, but not security. Islam teaches that security in relationships comes from intention, not attachment alone. Attachment without intention is fragile. It breaks easily. Fear-driven love clings without committing. This pattern exhausts the heart. Fear of societal judgment can also cause love to be hidden. Cultural pressure, family expectations, or fear of disapproval may silence a man's truth. Islam acknowledges cultural realities, but prioritizes honesty and justice. When love is hidden to avoid confrontation, it places emotional cost on the woman. She may feel like a secret rather than a blessing. Love that must stay hidden for long periods without direction slowly erodes self-worth. Islam teaches that dignity matters. A woman should not feel concealed out of someone else's fear. Fear that sacrifices another's dignity is not love guided by faith. Sometimes fear is simply fear of failure. A man may love but doubt his ability to sustain the relationship. Instead of seeking growth, he chooses avoidance. Islam teaches effort and reliance on Allah. Avoidance delays growth. When fear prevents effort, love remains stagnant. Stagnant love cannot mature. It remains emotionally incomplete. A woman may wait, believing time will fix fear. But fear does not heal through waiting alone. It heals through courage and faith. Without that, love remains hidden and unstable. Fear-driven love often produces mixed signals. One day there is warmth, the next distance. One moment there is care, the next silence. Islam teaches consistency. Consistency is a sign of sincerity. Inconsistency is communication. It communicates uncertainty, fear, and unreadiness. A woman of faith observes patterns rather than excuses. Patterns reveal truth more clearly than words. When fear leads love, patterns become unpredictable. Unpredictability drains emotional safety. Safety is essential for love to grow. A woman must understand that hidden love is not her responsibility to uncover. Islam teaches that guidance comes from Allah. She is not meant to chase clarity or heal someone else's fear. Chasing clarity often deepens attachment to uncertainty. Islam teaches dignity in waiting and wisdom in stepping back. When love remains hidden, it is a sign to pause, not pursue. Pausing protects the heart. Protection is an act of self-respect. Fear may explain hidden love, but it does not excuse prolonged confusion. Islam teaches mercy, but not self-harm. A woman can empathize without enduring emotional instability. Love that is meant to grow will move toward light, not remain in shadows. Fear resists light. Faith moves toward it. When fear remains dominant, Allah may be protecting you by keeping clarity delayed. Delay is sometimes mercy. A woman anchored in faith understands that love should bring calm, not constant questioning. Islam teaches that peace is a sign of alignment. Hidden love rarely brings peace. It brings anxiety, overthinking, and emotional imbalance. These are signals, not tests of patience. Patience does not mean enduring confusion indefinitely. Wisdom knows when fear has replaced intention. Love that is hidden often reveals more about fear than about affection. A woman does not need to prove her worth to make someone brave. Courage cannot be borrowed. If a man cannot stand openly in his feelings, trust that Allah sees what you cannot. What is hidden now may save you later, and what is meant for you will come with clarity, courage, and peace, not fear. Emotional wounds can silence truth. Emotional wounds have a quiet way of silencing truth long before words are ever spoken. Islam teaches us that the heart carries memory, and when that memory is shaped by pain, it influences behavior deeply. A man who has been hurt before may genuinely care, yet struggle to express what he feels honestly. His silence is not always intentional deception, sometimes it is self-protection. Pain teaches people to guard themselves, often too tightly. When fear of being hurt again settles in the heart, truth feels dangerous. Speaking openly means risking vulnerability, and vulnerability feels unsafe to a wounded heart. So love is felt, but not declared. Concern is shown, but clarity is withheld. This creates confusion for the woman who senses affection but cannot understand the distance. Islam teaches us that unhealed wounds distort communication. When wounds remain unaddressed, silence becomes a shield. That shield may protect the man temporarily, but it places emotional strain on the woman. Truth delayed by fear often becomes pain for someone else. Emotional wounds often come from past rejection, betrayal, or loss. Islam acknowledges pain, but encourages healing through faith, reflection, and accountability. When healing does not happen, wounds harden into habits. A man may avoid direct conversations, delay commitment, or keep emotional distance because his heart associates openness with suffering. Instead of processing pain, he hides behind silence. Silence feels safer than honesty. But Islam teaches that safety built on avoidance is fragile. Avoidance does not heal wounds, it only postpones them. A woman may try to be patient, believing love will eventually bring openness. But patience does not cure emotional injury. Healing requires awareness and effort. Without that effort, wounds continue to control behavior. Love cannot grow freely where fear still dominates. Emotional wounds that remain unhealed quietly dictate actions, often at the expense of clarity and trust. When emotional wounds silence truth, inconsistency appears. One moment there is warmth, the next there is withdrawal. Islam teaches consistency as a sign of sincerity. Inconsistency often signals internal conflict. A man may feel close emotionally, then pull away when the fear of vulnerability rises. This push and pull confuses the woman's heart. Confusion is emotionally draining. Islam teaches that love should bring tranquility, not constant uncertainty. When wounds control communication, words become scarce and actions become unpredictable. The woman may begin to question herself, wondering if she has done something wrong. This self-doubt is not love's fruit. It is the result of unresolved pain spilling into the relationship. Emotional wounds that silence truth shift the burden of clarity onto the woman, which Islam does not support. Emotional wounds also affect how responsibility is handled. A wounded heart often fears accountability. Islam teaches responsibility as a core principle of relationships. When a man is emotionally wounded, he may hesitate to define intentions because definition brings obligation. Obligation feels heavy to someone who already feels emotionally overwhelmed, so he stays vague. Vague love feels safer to him, but unstable to her. Stability requires intention. Intention requires courage. Courage grows from healing. Without healing, fear dictates distance. The woman may interpret silence as mystery or depth, but often it is unresolved pain. Islam encourages us to distinguish between patience and prolonged emotional harm. Understanding the source of silence does not mean accepting it indefinitely. A wounded man may also struggle with trust. Past experiences may have taught him that honesty leads to loss. Islam teaches trust in Allah, not fear of people. When trust in Allah is weak, fear grows stronger. That fear silences truth. He may withhold feelings, delay decisions, or avoid commitment because he does not trust outcomes. This lack of trust creates emotional imbalance. Love without trust becomes fragile. Fragile love cannot support two hearts. The woman may feel like she is standing on uncertain ground. Islam teaches that emotional safety is a right, not a luxury. Silence driven by fear undermines that safety. Emotional wounds can also distort communication style. Instead of clear expression, there may be hints, indirect affection, or mixed signals. Islam teaches clarity in speech because clarity prevents harm. Indirect communication keeps the woman guessing. Guessing drains emotional energy. Over time, this creates exhaustion rather than connection. Exhaustion shows emotionally and physically. Islam does not encourage relationships that drain the soul. A woman must recognize when silence is not thoughtful restraint, but emotional avoidance. Avoidance is not neutral, it shapes outcomes. Sometimes, emotional wounds are tied to shame. A man may feel inadequate because of past failures. Islam teaches repentance and renewal, not lifelong shame. When shame is unresolved, truth feels exposing. So silence becomes a way to hide perceived weakness. But hiding prevents growth. Growth requires honesty. Without honesty, love cannot mature. The woman may sense insecurity beneath the silence. Compassion is natural, but compassion does not require self-sacrifice. Islam encourages empathy without self-harm. Emotional wounds also affect timing. A man may believe he needs more time to heal, yet take no steps toward healing. Time alone does not heal wounds. Islam teaches action paired with trust. Waiting without effort prolongs pain. The woman may wait, hoping time will bring clarity, but clarity comes from intention, not time. Silence without direction leaves the woman emotionally suspended. Islam does not encourage emotional suspension. Decisions should move toward clarity or closure. A woman of faith must understand that she is not responsible for healing someone else's wounds. Islam teaches personal accountability. Each soul is responsible for its own healing. A woman can support, but she cannot replace effort. Trying to rescue someone emotionally often leads to self-neglect. Self-neglect erodes dignity. Islam prioritizes dignity. When silence persists, wisdom calls for reflection, not pursuit. Emotional wounds explain behavior, but they do not justify prolonged confusion. Islam teaches mercy balanced with justice. Mercy toward others should not result in injustice toward oneself. A woman can recognize pain without normalizing emotional harm. Silence that repeatedly hurts the heart is not a test of patience, it is a sign of misalignment. Allah does not require a woman to endure emotional uncertainty to prove faith. Sometimes Allah allows silence to reveal truth. What is not said becomes as important as what is said. Islam teaches that actions and patterns speak clearly. If wounds continue to silence truth, Allah may be protecting you from deeper attachment. Distance can be mercy, delay can be guidance. What is unclear now may save you from pain later. Emotional wounds can silence truth, but truth always finds a way to surface. A woman who trusts Allah does not chase clarity from silence. She observes, prays, and protects her heart. Love meant for her will not remain hidden behind fear forever, and what cannot speak honestly was never meant to hold her heart. Inconsistency is a form of communication. Inconsistency is not confusion, it is communication. Islam teaches us to pay attention not only to words, but to patterns. When a man's behavior shifts without explanation, warm one day, distant the next, his actions are speaking clearly, even if his mouth is silent. Many women are taught to wait for verbal clarity, but Islam emphasizes wisdom and observation. Actions reveal priorities. Inconsistency often reflects inner conflict, fear, or lack of intention. It tells you that the heart is undecided, unsettled, or unwilling to stand firmly. A woman may feel affection in moments, then feel neglected shortly after. This emotional swing creates anxiety. Anxiety is not a sign of love, it is a sign of instability. Islam teaches that tranquility is a sign of what is right. When inconsistency dominates, peace disappears. That absence of peace is information. It is not something to ignore or explain away. Inconsistent behavior may feel personal, but it often has little to do with the woman's worth. It reflects the other person's internal state. Wisdom is recognizing the message before the heart becomes attached to confusion. Inconsistency communicates uncertainty. A man who does not know what he wants often sends mixed signals. One moment he invests, the next he withdraws. Islam teaches decisiveness because indecision causes harm. Harm does not always come through cruelty. Sometimes it comes through unpredictability. A woman begins to question herself, wondering what changed or what she did wrong. This self-questioning drains emotional energy. Islam does not encourage relationships that make a person doubt their value. Inconsistency quietly erodes confidence. It keeps the woman emotionally alert, waiting for the next shift. This constant vigilance is exhausting. Love should feel grounding, not destabilizing. When inconsistency appears early, it is often a warning, not a phase. Patterns repeat unless addressed. Islam teaches us to observe behavior over time. Repeated inconsistency is not accidental. It is a form of communication saying, I am not ready, or I am unsure, or I cannot offer stability right now. Inconsistency also communicates priorities. People are consistent with what they value deeply. Islam teaches that the heart follows what it prioritizes. When effort appears only when convenient, it sends a clear message. A man may care, but not enough to be steady. Caring without consistency creates emotional imbalance. Balance is essential for peace. Islam teaches moderation and reliability. A woman who receives inconsistent attention may confuse scarcity with value. When attention is rare, it feels special. But scarcity caused by inconsistency is not love, it is emotional unpredictability. Islam encourages clarity because clarity protects the heart. When clarity is missing, inconsistency fills the space. That space becomes painful over time. Inconsistency can also signal fear of responsibility. Commitment requires consistency. Islam teaches accountability in relationships. When someone avoids consistency, they may be avoiding responsibility. Responsibility means showing up even when it is inconvenient. Love that disappears under pressure is not love ready to grow. A woman may feel moments of closeness and hope, followed by silence. Silence after intimacy is particularly harmful. Islam does not support emotional highs followed by unexplained lows. This pattern creates attachment without security. Attachment without security leads to emotional harm. Wisdom is recognizing that inconsistency is not neutral. It actively shapes the emotional environment, and that environment matters. Inconsistent behavior often comes with excuses. Busy schedules, stress, confusion, or timing are offered as explanations. Islam teaches us to separate reasons from patterns. Occasional absence is human. Repeated inconsistency is intentional or unresolved. A woman must learn to listen to behavior rather than potential. Potential keeps the heart waiting. Behavior reveals reality. Islam teaches realism rooted in trust in Allah, not hope in people's promises. When behavior does not align with words, the behavior is the truth. This truth is difficult to accept because it challenges emotional attachment, but ignoring it leads to deeper pain later. Inconsistency also tests boundaries. A woman may tolerate mixed signals out of patience or hope. Islam values patience, but patience is not passive endurance of harm. Patience is active trust in Allah while protecting oneself. Allowing inconsistency without response teaches the other person that instability is acceptable. Islam encourages self-respect. Self-respect means responding to patterns with wisdom. Sometimes that response is distance. Distance creates clarity. Clarity reveals intention. If consistency appears only when distance is introduced, the original pattern still matters. Temporary consistency does not erase long-term inconsistency. Inconsistent communication affects emotional health. The nervous system reacts to unpredictability. Constant emotional shifts create stress. Islam teaches that the body and soul are connected. Emotional stress eventually manifests physically. Sleep is disturbed. Focus weakens. Joy fades. A relationship that consistently produces anxiety is not aligned with peace. Islam teaches that peace is a sign of blessing. Inconsistency removes peace. That removal is information, not a challenge to overcome. Inconsistency can also reflect divided intentions. A man may want companionship without commitment. Islam teaches that intentions define actions. When intentions are divided, actions become inconsistent. The woman may receive affection without direction. Directionless affection confuses the heart. Confusion weakens emotional safety. Islam does not encourage emotional confusion. A woman deserves clarity before attachment deepens. Clarity protects dignity. A woman of faith does not chase consistency. She observes it. Islam teaches that guidance comes from Allah. She prays for clarity and watches behavior. She does not argue with patterns. She does not try to fix inconsistency through effort. Effort cannot replace intention. Intention must come from the other person. When it does not, wisdom calls for acceptance, not pursuit. Inconsistency also reveals emotional availability. Someone emotionally available shows up steadily. Islam teaches reliability as a sign of trustworthiness. When reliability is missing, trust cannot grow. Trust is essential for love. Without trust, attachment becomes fragile. Fragile attachment breaks easily. Islam teaches to build on strong foundations, not shifting ground. Sometimes Allah allows inconsistency to appear early as protection. Early discomfort prevents deeper attachment. Islam teaches that what feels painful now may be mercy later. Inconsistency exposes unreadiness. Unreadiness saves you from future heartbreak if recognized early. Ignoring it delays clarity. Inconsistency is a form of communication. It communicates uncertainty, fear, lack of readiness, or divided intention. A woman anchored in faith listens carefully. She does not personalize inconsistency or internalize it as failure. She recognizes it as information, and she responds with dignity, prayer, and wisdom. Because love meant for her will not require decoding mixed signals. It will come with steadiness, clarity, and peace. Love without intention leads to harm. Love without intention often feels intense at first, but it slowly becomes painful because it has no direction. Islam teaches us that feelings alone are not enough to sustain a relationship. Intention gives love, structure, purpose, and protection. When a man feels love, but has no clear intention toward commitment, responsibility, or halal direction, the relationship exists in emotional limbo. Emotional limbo is dangerous because it creates attachment without security. A woman may feel close, valued, and connected, yet remain uncertain about where she stands. This uncertainty quietly harms the heart. Islam teaches that clarity protects dignity. Without intention, love becomes confusing instead of comforting. Confusion drains peace. Peace is one of the signs of what is right. When peace is missing, something essential is missing. Love without intention keeps the heart hopeful but unsettled. Over time, that unsettled feeling turns into anxiety, overthinking, and emotional exhaustion. This harm does not happen suddenly. It builds slowly, which is why it is often ignored at first. But Islam teaches us to recognize harm early before it grows deep roots in the heart. Intention is what separates sincere love from emotional indulgence. A man may enjoy emotional closeness, conversation, and affection, yet avoid defining the relationship. Islam teaches accountability in relationships because accountability prevents harm. When intention is absent, accountability disappears. Without accountability, boundaries blur. Blurred boundaries lead to emotional vulnerability without protection. A woman may give emotionally, thinking love will eventually become clear, but love without intention does not mature on its own. Time does not create intention. Intention must be chosen. Islam teaches that actions are judged by intentions because intentions guide outcomes. When intention is missing, outcomes become uncertain. Uncertainty is stressful. Stress weakens emotional health. Emotional weakness makes the heart more vulnerable to harm. Love should strengthen the heart, not wear it down. Love without intention often relies on hope instead of clarity. Hope is beautiful when placed in Allah, but dangerous when placed in people without commitment. Islam teaches us to hope wisely. A woman may hope that love will turn into commitment if she is patient enough. But patience does not replace intention. Patience without direction becomes endurance of harm. Islam does not ask women to endure emotional harm to prove faith. Faith includes wisdom. Wisdom asks whether intention is present. Without intention, love remains incomplete. Incomplete love cannot provide stability. Stability is necessary for emotional safety. When safety is missing, attachment becomes risky. Risky attachment creates fear of loss. Fear of loss leads to self-silencing, overgiving, and emotional compromise. These are signs of harm, not love. Love without intention also creates imbalance. One person becomes emotionally invested, while the other remains undecided. Islam teaches balance in relationships. Imbalance places emotional weight on one heart. That heart begins to carry uncertainty alone. Carrying uncertainty alone is heavy. Over time, it affects self-worth. A woman may begin to question her value, wondering why love is not being chosen openly. This questioning is harmful. Islam teaches that honor comes from Allah, not from being chosen by someone uncertain. Love that does not move toward intention quietly undermines dignity. Dignity is essential for peace. When dignity is compromised, peace fades. A man who loves without intention may not intend harm, but harm can still occur. Islam distinguishes between intention and impact. Even without bad intentions, unclear love can hurt deeply. Emotional harm does not require cruelty. It only requires neglect of responsibility. Responsibility means recognizing the effect of one's actions on another's heart. When intention is absent, responsibility is often avoided. Avoidance leaves wounds. Wounds grow where clarity is withheld. Islam encourages honesty because honesty prevents emotional injury. Silence about intention allows attachment to grow unchecked. Unchecked attachment is fragile. It breaks painfully. Love without intention often keeps a woman waiting. Waiting itself is not harmful, but waiting without direction is. Islam teaches that time is a trust. Spending time in emotional uncertainty wastes emotional energy. That energy could be invested in growth, healing, or preparation for what Allah has written. Instead, it becomes tied to anticipation and doubt. Doubt erodes peace. Peace is not negotiable in Islam. When love removes peace, it must be questioned. Without intention, love becomes centered on emotion rather than values. Islam teaches that values sustain relationships, emotion fluctuates, values anchor. A relationship driven by feeling alone shifts with mood, stress, and convenience. This instability creates emotional highs and lows. Emotional instability is exhausting. Exhaustion leads to numbness or desperation. Neither is healthy. Islam teaches moderation. Love without intention lacks moderation because it is guided by impulse rather than purpose. A woman of faith must understand that love does not need to be dramatic to be real, but it must be intentional to be safe. Safety is a right, not a reward. Islam does not encourage emotional risk without protection. Protection comes from intention, boundaries, and clarity. When these are missing, harm becomes likely. Recognizing this is not cynicism, it is wisdom. Love without intention also delays healing and growth. A woman may remain emotionally attached to uncertainty, unable to move forward or let go. Islam teaches that attachment to uncertainty keeps the heart suspended. Suspended hearts struggle to heal. Healing requires closure or clarity. Intention provides clarity. Without it, the heart remains open and vulnerable. Sometimes Allah allows love without intention to appear so that a woman learns discernment. Discernment protects future peace. Islam teaches that lessons come through experience. Recognizing harm early is a form of mercy. Mercy is not always comfort, sometimes it is awakening. Love without intention leads to harm because it asks the heart to give without knowing where it is going. Islam teaches that the heart is precious. It should not be placed in uncertainty for long. Love meant for you will not stay undefined. It will move toward clarity, responsibility, and peace. And what cannot offer intention is not meant to hold your heart. When he hides, Allah is protecting you. When a man hides, it is easy for the heart to assume loss, rejection, or failure. But Islam teaches us to look deeper. Sometimes what feels like distance is actually protection. Allah, in His wisdom, does not always remove people abruptly. Sometimes He places veils, delays clarity, or creates emotional space so the heart does not rush into harm. When a man hides his intentions, emotions, or direction, Allah may be saving you from attachment to uncertainty. Not every closed door is a punishment. Many are safeguards. A woman of faith learns to pause instead of panic. She understands that what is unclear today may have caused pain tomorrow. Allah sees what you cannot see. He sees futures, consequences, and wounds that are hidden from your perspective. When clarity is withheld, it may be because clarity would have bound you emotionally to something unstable. Protection often arrives quietly. It does not always feel comforting at first, but it preserves dignity and peace in the long run. Allah protects the heart by preventing premature attachment. Islam teaches that attachment without intention leads to harm. When a man hides, he prevents emotional certainty from forming. While this feels confusing, it also stops the heart from fully investing. A heart that is not fully invested is easier to heal and redirect. Allah knows how deeply women feel. He knows how quickly the heart can bond. By allowing distance, Allah limits emotional exposure. This limitation is mercy. Mercy does not always feel gentle. Sometimes it feels like waiting, silence, or unanswered questions. But those moments keep the heart from building dreams on unstable ground. When Allah delays clarity, He is often redirecting the heart towards safety. When someone hides, it also reveals unreadiness. Islam teaches that readiness matters as much as feeling. A man may feel love but lack the strength, faith, or responsibility to carry it. Allah does not allow His servants to be burdened with what they cannot carry. If a man is not ready to stand openly, Allah may keep him distant so you are not pulled into his inner chaos. Chaos harms peace. Peace is sacred. Allah values peace in the hearts of believers. When peace is threatened, Allah intervenes. Intervention does not always come as removal. Sometimes it comes as emotional distance that prevents deeper harm. Hiding also exposes inconsistency early. Islam teaches us to observe patterns. If a man cannot be consistent now, he will not become consistent later without growth. Allah reveals these patterns early so the heart does not become entangled. Early discomfort prevents later devastation. A woman may feel confused, but confusion early is less damaging than heartbreak later. Allah's protection often feels like discomfort before attachment deepens. This discomfort invites reflection rather than reaction. Reflection leads to wisdom. Wisdom protects the heart. When Allah allows someone to hide, He is also protecting your dignity. Islam teaches that dignity should not be negotiated. A woman should not have to beg for clarity, attention, or honesty. When a man hides, Allah may be preventing you from lowering yourself to seek answers that should have been offered freely. Silence becomes a boundary set by Allah Himself. That boundary preserves self-respect. Self-respect is part of faith. When dignity is preserved, the heart remains strong even in uncertainty. Hiding can also be Allah's way of redirecting your focus back to Him. When clarity from people is missing, the heart turns upward. Islam teaches that hearts find rest in Allah, not in creation. Uncertainty pushes the heart toward prayer, reflection, and reliance on Allah. This reliance strengthens faith. Strengthened faith brings inner peace. Peace restores emotional balance. In this way, what feels like loss becomes spiritual gain. Allah does not waste moments of uncertainty. He uses them to realign the heart. Sometimes Allah hides someone to protect you from future regret. Regret often comes from ignoring early signs. Islam teaches that guidance appears in subtle ways. A man's silence, distance, or avoidance may be the sign. Allah does not always shout warnings. Sometimes He whispers through discomfort. Listening to that discomfort is an act of faith. Faith trusts that Allah's wisdom exceeds our desire. Desire sees only the present. Allah sees the outcome. When a man hides, Allah may also be teaching patience without attachment. Islam values patience but not attachment to harm. This kind of patience is calm and observant. It does not chase or force clarity. It waits with dignity. Waiting without attachment protects the heart. The heart remains open to what Allah has written rather than clinging to what is uncertain. This openness invites better outcomes. Hiding also reveals priorities. A man who hides his intentions shows where he stands. Allah allows this revelation so the woman does not build hope on ambiguity. Ambiguity drains emotional energy. Allah protects that energy by limiting access. Limited access prevents emotional depletion. Preserved energy supports clarity and self-respect. These are gifts, even if they do not feel like it immediately. A woman of faith understands that Allah's protection does not always match her expectations. She may want answers, reassurance, or closure. Allah may give her distance instead. Distance creates perspective. Perspective heals. Healing prepares the heart for what is right. Islam teaches that what is written will come without confusion. What requires constant interpretation is not meant to stay. When he hides, Allah may be removing him gently rather than painfully. Sudden endings hurt deeply. Gradual distance allows the heart to adjust. Adjustment reduces shock. Reduced shock protects emotional health. Allah is gentle with hearts. His protection often unfolds slowly so the heart can keep its balance. When he hides, trust that Allah is not withholding goodness. He is preventing harm. What is meant for you will not remain hidden behind fear, silence, or uncertainty. It will come openly, clearly, and with peace. And what hides now was never meant to hold your heart. A woman of faith does not chase clarity. A woman of faith does not chase clarity because she understands that clarity is not something she must extract from people. Islam teaches us that what is meant to be clear will not require begging, pressure, or emotional pursuit. When a woman begins chasing answers, explanations, or reassurance, she often sacrifices her peace in the process. Faith teaches patience paired with self-respect. A woman rooted in faith knows that constant questioning does not bring truth, observation does. She allows actions to speak louder than promises. Chasing clarity often comes from fear, fear of loss, fear of uncertainty, fear of letting go. But faith replaces fear with trust in Allah. Trust allows the heart to stay calm even when answers are delayed. A calm heart sees more clearly than an anxious one. Islam does not teach women to live in emotional confusion. It teaches dignity. Dignity means waiting without desperation and stepping back without resentment. When clarity does not come naturally, it is often because Allah is protecting the heart from attachment to uncertainty. A woman of faith honors that protection instead of fighting it. Chasing clarity can quietly shift power away from the woman. Islam teaches balance and self-worth. When a woman repeatedly seeks explanations, she may unknowingly communicate that her peace depends on someone else's response. This dependence creates emotional imbalance. A woman of faith does not place her emotional stability in the hands of another person. She places it with Allah. When clarity is missing, she turns inward and upward, not outward in pursuit. She asks Allah for guidance instead of asking people for reassurance. This choice preserves dignity. Dignity changes how a woman carries herself. She does not appear anxious or unsure. She appears calm and grounded. That calm is not indifference, it is trust. Trust allows the heart to remain steady, even when answers are delayed. Islam teaches that not every question requires an immediate answer. Some answers come through time and behavior, not words. A woman of faith understands that clarity forced is rarely truthful. When someone is pressured to explain, they may offer temporary reassurance rather than honest intention. Islam teaches sincerity, not performance. Chasing clarity can produce comforting words that lack commitment. A woman rooted in faith values truth over temporary comfort. She prefers silence over misleading reassurance. Silence, when observed carefully, reveals reality. Reality may be uncomfortable, but it is less harmful than illusion. Islam encourages wisdom, and wisdom often lies in restraint. Restraint protects the heart from disappointment later. A woman who does not chase clarity allows Allah to reveal what needs to be revealed. Revelation may come through consistency, distance, or changed behavior. These signs are clearer than explanations spoken under pressure. Faith also teaches a woman to recognize when clarity is being avoided. Avoidance itself is an answer. Islam teaches us to reflect on patterns, not excuses. When a man consistently avoids defining his intentions, his avoidance communicates unreadiness. A woman of faith does not chase someone who is avoiding responsibility. Responsibility is a core Islamic value. Without it, love becomes unstable. Instability does not deserve pursuit. A woman who respects herself will not run after uncertainty. She will pause, reflect, and protect her heart. Protection is not harshness, it is wisdom. Wisdom allows the heart to remain open without becoming vulnerable to harm. A woman of faith also understands that chasing clarity often leads to self-silencing later. When she asks repeatedly and receives partial answers, she may settle for less to avoid losing connection. Islam teaches that self-silencing is not patience. Patience does not erase truth, it waits with dignity. When clarity is delayed, a faithful woman does not lower her standards. She maintains them quietly. Quiet standards are powerful because they are not negotiated. They are lived. Living your standards communicates more clearly than words ever could. Chasing clarity can also distract a woman from her own intuition. Islam teaches that Allah places guidance within the heart of the believer. When a woman ignores discomfort to chase reassurance, she overrides that guidance. Faith invites her to listen inwardly. If something feels unsettled, she pays attention. She does not rush to silence her intuition with explanations. She allows time to confirm what her heart already senses. This patience strengthens discernment. Discernment protects peace. Peace is a sign of alignment in Islam. A woman of faith trusts that clarity aligned with goodness does not require pursuit. What is meant for her will move toward her with openness. Islam teaches that provision comes without humiliation. Love is also provision. A woman should not feel humiliated seeking basic clarity. When she does, it is a sign that something is misaligned. Recognizing misalignment early is mercy. Mercy does not always feel pleasant, but it prevents deeper harm. A faithful woman accepts this mercy with grace. Faith also reminds a woman that timing belongs to Allah. She does not rush processes that Allah has slowed. Rushing often leads to regret. Islam teaches that haste comes from shaitan. A woman who chases clarity may act from impatience rather than wisdom. Wisdom waits without attachment. Attachment clouds judgment. Waiting without attachment keeps judgment clear. Clear judgment leads to better decisions. A woman of faith does not equate silence with rejection. She also does not romanticize silence. She simply observes it. Observation is neutral and wise. It allows the heart to stay balanced. Islam teaches moderation in emotional response. Moderation preserves dignity, dignity preserves peace, peace preserves faith. Chasing clarity can also keep a woman emotionally stuck. She may delay moving forward, hoping answers will arrive. Islam teaches that movement comes from trust. Trust allows the heart to release what is uncertain. Releasing uncertainty does not mean giving up. It means opening space for what Allah has written. Space invites clarity naturally. A woman of faith knows that clarity is not her responsibility to demand. It is the responsibility of the one who intends sincerity to offer. When it is not offered, she steps back without bitterness. Bitterness weakens faith. Calm acceptance strengthens it. Acceptance does not mean approval. It means trust in Allah's plan. A woman of faith does not chase clarity because she trusts that what is meant for her will come with peace, intention, and openness. And what requires pursuit, pressure, and emotional exhaustion was never meant to stay. Love that is meant for you will not require confusion, guessing, or emotional exhaustion. If a man truly loves you and is ready, his intentions will eventually align with his actions. And if he remains hidden, distant, or unclear, trust that Allah sees what you cannot. You are not meant to chase answers, you are meant to walk in dignity and peace. What is written for you will come openly, honestly, and without fear. And what hides from the light was never meant to stay.